I've mentored and hired hundreds of women who haven't been great at negotiating or asking for the money they're worth. So in this video, I want to share some tips and advice on how to do that better. Because once upon a time in my career, not my time at Google, but before that, I discovered I was paid 30% less than another guy who was doing exactly the same job as me. It was a shock, and at the time I had no idea on how to deal with it. There's the emotional side of it, and then there's a real practical side of making sure I was going to get paid what I was worth, because I loved that job and I didn't want to just walk away from it. So here are my tips on how to tackle that moment you find out you're not paid quite as much as someone else. Or actually, this advice works very well if you're going in to negotiate a pay rise or any shift in what you're valued and how you want to be paid. So the first thing you've got to do in that situation is not let the emotions take over. And you do that by going to the data first. So initially, you want to go off and find all of the different data points that prove your value. Performance reviews, sales figures if it was as it was for me, whatever you might be doing achieving your targets, you want to find that data, bring it together to prove your value. The next is to go and have a look at some outside data. So it might be things like Glassdoor reviews, or maybe other jobs in the market that are very similar to the job you do. And you've also got proof of other jobs within the business. So really what you want to do is show where you're leveled compared to others for doing exactly the same job. You want to make sure that you don't pick holes about other people in the team. This isn't about pay me this because so-and-so is getting paid that. This is about pay me this because this is the value that I bring to the business, and this is how you have valued that role. By removing names, you make sure you take the emotion, and you don't want to seem petty or that you're pegging yourself against someone else, particularly in my case, someone who I didn't think was doing a particularly good job. I wanted to be paid against my value. And then the final thing is you've got to prepare this as if you're going to court. Now, in court, you wouldn't bring the emotions in there. You're going to use your data. So compile all your data, think about how you want to tell your story, and approach it as if you were going into court to fight your case. Next up is you need to practice the conversation. So as I said, I went home and cried. I actually felt sick thinking about the whole situation, and even more so the idea of going back in and tackling it. The first thing is you've got to get control of your emotions. Do all the things you know that will help you, things like breathing, writing things down. Actually just getting it out of your head onto a piece of paper really helps. The next is practice. So I practiced in the mirror over and over again, and actually if you've got a mentor or a friend you can do this is a really great way to do. Get them to just sit there almost emotionless and hear you out, because really what you're practicing is how you control your voice and removing emotion from there. Your voice is probably going to shake. So how can you go back to controlling that? And rehearsing it really does help. I remember going over it multiple times in front of the mirror just to think about everything from my expression to actually the words I was going to say. So the words you're going to say really need that rehearsal. Writing them down, thinking about that first opening line, but also about the objections. So what if they say something to you? How are you going to respond to that? What are your hot buttons? We all have trigger points. They're bound to say things that are going to trigger you. How are you going to react in that moment? It's amazing when you rehearse and practice how you're going to respond to something said to you that's going to create a reaction. Practice it. And finally, it's really hard. It's really hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and pretend it's not, but practicing and really going through the motions, like visualizing yourself in that room, so having that conversation will make a huge difference to be able to get through that moment. The emotions will take over it in moments, but you can control that and do a much better job for yourself going into that by practicing it and rehearsing it before you go in. It's hard, but you can do this. So you want to treat this like a business negotiation. It's going to help take the emotion out and keep it really practical to get to where you want to. So first things first, you need to make sure you ask for the meeting. Take control and set the tone. Send them an email that says something like compensation review. So you're being really clear about what you want to have a conversation about. It gives them a chance to prepare, and that's really important. Actually, the more prepared they are, the better it is for you as well. It gives you a chance to also anticipate maybe what they may say or try and shift in that conversation. Hold them to account. Don't let them shift the meeting, and don't let them walk away without any clear actions or deadlines. It's totally okay, as you would in any business negotiation, to be clear in how you set an agenda at the beginning, how you conduct the meeting through it with clear actions and follow-ups, and actually how you return afterwards. So treat it with exact same professionalism you would do if you were having a business negotiation. So it's really important that you state your case without apologising. Don't bring any feelings and emotions into this. It's really important that you don't start the conversation with a "I feel like." Whether it's you want to say that I feel like I should be paid more, you cannot say that. You actually want to say is, I'd like to state your case. So you go in with, as I did, based on the data, I'm currently being compensated 30% less than I should be. And I'd like to discuss how we close that gap. As you can see with that, I'm leading with the information and the proof points that I have. Confidence does not equal arrogance. It's really important you have the data, you have the self-belief, you've got an idea of self-worth. Go in with that confidence. Be in control. One of the most important things that most people don't talk about when you're negotiating your pay is that you need to be prepared to walk away. You need to be prepared to set the right deadlines for your employer and for yourself. I've often found that most employers will let this roll on. Maybe not always with poor intention, but it can often get bumped and pushed along with either other bits of information needed or someone else that needs to be consulted. The fair and right thing here to do is to talk to your boss or your employer and say, this is the deadline by which I want this resolved. The most important deadline is to not let this roll on to your next pay review. You need to review it now. Too often someone will want to knock it over to the next pay review. That's not going to help you. You'll get what you were meant to get then anyway, rather than what you should be getting right now. The next really critical deadline is with yourself. I had made the decision that I was ready to walk away from that role if I could not get what I felt I would deserved and was market value there. And that's because for me, I decided I didn't want to be in a business that did not value my contribution and my talents there. Now that's a tough decision for anybody to make, and there are lots of factors that play into whether you should stay or go. But it's important to have that conversation with yourself. Some people will say, actually, I'm okay to stay. This isn't so bad, I will continue and I'll continue to address it. For others, it'll be a red line and they'll need to go. The most important thing though is actually to have that conversation and set a deadline with yourself, because the danger is it keeps rolling on and that's really punishing to yourself and your confidence. So having the confidence to say, actually, do you know what? I've got the ace card in my pocket. I am ready to walk away, and see what that then opens up. Because if you go in without that sense of confidence into the meeting, probably not going to walk away with the result you want. And most importantly, this is about you and your personal decision as to how you want to see this outcome. I've been in other situations when I realised it's not the money that's the ceiling, it's the culture. What I mean by money not being the ceiling is sometimes we think in a role that we can only grow to a certain point, or that's the only reason that will keep you. You know, the money is the determinant of your progress or how you might actually value yourself. A culture can actually put an enforced ceiling on you. So it's almost, in some respects, it doesn't matter how much you deliver and how brilliant you are, it'll hold you there. That shouldn't be the case. Money should be able to grow with the impact you have and the success that you have, not because a company's decided that's as far as you can go. If you found this video useful and the information I've shared there has helped you, check out my other video, The 7 Habits of Really Effective, Brilliant Women, because we need to talk about money more.